Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's start our today's session. And today we are going to start our new unit that is JavaScript, right? So, in our first two units, we discuss about the basics of internet, www and HTTP responses and all that, right? After that, we have discussed about the HTML. Okay, so HTML is used for structuring, right? Designing, you can say. Then after we have discussed about the CSS, so CSS is used for styling, right? So JavaScript is used for logics, right? So it adds the functionality, it adds the logic to your particular designing and styling, right? So with these three combinations, you can achieve a lots of things, right? So we are comfortable now with the HTML, how to design the particular website structure, then how you can provide the styles, right? Now we are going to learn about the how you can provide the logics, right? So let's first of all start with the introduction. Okay. So here you can see that a JavaScript or the short form is JS, right? It's prototype or you can say the object base, right? Second one is a interpreted. Okay, so JIT or a runtime compiled in modern web browsers are responsible to interpret this JavaScript code. And it's a scripting language of a web developed by Netscapes in 1995, right? So the journey of this is started from 1995. So it is an object-based, interpreted, and a scripting language for the web development, right? Now, JavaScript is a scripting language for designing the web pages. Why we use that, right? So JavaScript enhances a web pages with dynamic and interactive features, right? So up till now, we have designed the forms, right? In a forms, we are filling some information. Okay. But whenever we are going to submit the button, after that, when to send the data and all that background logic, how you can display that data. So that we have not written up till now, right? For the validation, suppose if you are filling up the forms, right? So my name should be up to 20 characters. Okay. So that kind of stuff. Nowadays, we know that we have a new HTML5 attributes. So that kind of logics are also now negligible, right? But in earlier days, we were writing this kind of logics, right? Background logics for the validation calculations, right? So all these functionalities you can add now with the use of JavaScript. Second point is JavaScript runs in a client-side software. Okay. So here, whatever coding we are going to write, right? So we are going to execute that code in our browser. So browser is a local software, right? So it is at the client side. So JavaScript runs in a client side, right? We are not going to run this particular thing at the server side right now. Okay. We are going to run JavaScript at the client side. Scripts are programs just like any other programs. Okay, so whatever logics up till now we are writing in a C, C++, Java, so that kind of small logics we can write in a JavaScript, right? Okay, the next thing is JavaScript is used to build interactive websites, right? So I hope you know the meaning of interactive with dynamic features and to validate the form data, right? So as we have discussed earlier, it is used to validate the form data, right? JavaScript is a high-level dynamic and browser-interpreted programming language supported by almost all the modern web browsers, right? Apart from web browsers, JavaScript is also used to build scalable web applications, right? Using Node.js and Deno, right? So nowadays you can see that we have a Node.js that is server-side language, JavaScript, right? So that particular whatever JavaScript languages you are seeing right now, right? So the base of it's a JavaScript itself, right? These are the particular extensions, or according to the requirements, developers have developed these particular languages, right? So you can also say this is a programming languages of the web. You can also say that, right? It is known as the scripting language, but if you can, if you want to say that, you can also say that it's a programming language of the web, right? As it is the only programming language for the web browsers. Okay, so this is the introduction of the particular JavaScript, right? Now, why you should learn JavaScript in 2021, right? Or for the features. Okay, so here you can see that JavaScript is used in a front-end development, it used in a back-end development, and as well as it is also used in a software development. So using Ionic or React Native. So all these places you will find JS, right? At all these places you will find the JS. Okay, so we have already discussed about all these stuffs in our earlier sessions, right? So now you know the importance of the particular JavaScript language, right? Almost everywhere it is going to be used, right? So that's why it is a very or if you observe, if you search on the internet, right, the popular or trending languages, so JavaScript is there in 1 to 5 numbers, right? So you will find JavaScript very important nowadays. Okay, what can JavaScript do? Okay, so common JavaScript tasks can be replaced server-side scripting, right? So what are the tasks what we are going to discuss, right? There's like a form validation, right? So my password must be 8 characters and all that stuff. Your name, your mobile number field should not be blank. So if you imagine that you have to fill 3 pages form, right? And after that, you have to submit the data, right? So whatever process is there, we already know whenever we submit the data, that request goes to the server, server will validate all the things and give us the response back. So for this kind of small task, this particular field should not be blank, right? We don't need to wait till our server responds, right? Okay, so what you can do, whenever you are filling up the forms, at the same time you get the response like this particular field should not be blank, right? So what is the advantage of this? Like whenever you are doing this, so unnecessary that server response, that particular delay should be avoided, right? So you don't need to wait unnecessarily for this kind of small tasks, small calculations, right? Special effects, image swapping, image mapping, clocks, and many more other functions you can perform at the client side. So you don't need to send the request to the server, wait till that server validate your request and then come back to you, right? So instead of that, this kind of small task can be performed at the client side itself. So your response type is going to be increased, right? Some other tasks like handling the user interactions, doing small calculations, checking for the accuracy and appropriateness of a data entry from the forms, doing small calculations and manipulations of the form input data, like you want to convert your data into caps, right? Searching a small database embedded in downloaded page, save data as a cookie as it is there upon visiting the page. So, you know, these are the particular tasks are going to be carried out whenever you are interacting with the websites, right? So these are the very basic tasks. So that should be the server response. So that is the advantage of JavaScript, right? You can perform this particular task at the client side, and you can increase the response time. Unnecessary waiting you are going to avoid, right? Now let's discuss what are the applications of JavaScript nowadays. So as we know that JavaScripts can be used to create front-end, back-end software development, even in a mobile apps like Ionic and all that, right? So we have already discussed about this. Then animations, right? So some kind of animations you can put, right? Games, AR, VR, 2D and 3D, right? So you can see it covers almost all the majority areas, right? So JavaScript is useful for developing all these applications. Okay, so you can imagine the power of JavaScript, right? Okay, what are the advantages of JavaScript? So the very first advantage is less server interaction. So unnecessarily, you don't need to send the request to the server, so that server load is going to be decreased. Immediate feedback to the visitors, right? So immediately you will get what kind of errors are there, what kind of validations are there. Increased interactivity, richer interfaces. Web surfer don't need a special plugin to use your script, right? So in almost all the browsers, JavaScript is enabled. In almost all the browsers, if you go to the browser setting, right, and you will find somewhere this particular term is there, JavaScript enabled, right? So there is a checkbox, you just need to check it or not, right? So by default it is checked. So whatever JavaScript logics are there, so that are going to be executed. So this must be there. You have to enable JavaScript in your browser. By default it is enabled, but somehow if someone has changed the particular settings, right, so you just need to change it. And JavaScript is relatively secure, right? So these are the particular advantages of JavaScript, right? Okay, now what are the limitations with the JavaScript? Obviously every programming languages have some limitations, right? So the very first limitation is it is not a full-fledged programming language, guys, right? So you do not write a networking, multi-threading related task. Okay, so that kind of things are not supported in the JavaScript. But for to fulfill that particular task, we have a different types of versions of JavaScripts nowadays, right? So that is not that it is not possible, right? Everything is possible nowadays with the use of JavaScript, right? Different versions of JavaScript, right? But obviously, as we write a very complex applications in Java or .NET, so that kind of applications we cannot, you can say, expect from the JavaScript, right? Because it is a web based. Okay, so there may be a performance issues. Okay, so that kind of things are there. So these are the particular limitations of JavaScript, right? There should be some limitations for the JavaScript, right? It is not like a .NET or you can say Java or right PHP. Okay, now what is script? So here, every time we are talking about a script, right? So script is a small embedded program, right? So as we are going to write the particular style in a CSS, right? So that kind of thing we are going to write over here. So here we are going to write a program, right? In a CSS, we are going to use a properties and value structure. Here in a script, we are going to write literally a code. Okay. So as you are writing in C, C++, so that kind of code is there. Obviously, the syntax and terminologies are different, but the concept is same. The most popular scripting languages on the web server are JavaScript and VB script, right? Nowadays, it is not a VB script, it is a TypeScript, right? TypeScript, okay? Then MCAS. So these are the very popular scripting languages are there, Node.js, Express.js, and all that. So nowadays it is not like that. Only JavaScript is there. There are different versions of JavaScripts are there. So according to your requirement, you can choose it. HTML does not have a scripting capability. You need to use a script tag. So if you want to write a script logic in a HTML tag, then you have to use a script tag. So script, and this is the closing of a script. And here in between these two tags, right, you have to write a logic. You have to write a logic, right? So as in a CSS, what we are writing? We are writing style. So similarly, in a JavaScript, you have to write a script, right? That's it, guys. Okay, so here are some examples I have put, right? So here you can understand that we are going to use a script. What is the type? Type is a text / JavaScript. This you need to write. This is the closing of it. And here is the logic. Okay. That is a different version. So this is second version. This is a first version. You can write any of this. In the second version, what is the difference? You have to put like this. This is symbol, and you have to compulsorily put this, right? Now, what is the advantage of this? So sometimes what happens whenever we are executing the code, right? So our code is not behaving appropriately. It has some bugs. It has some errors, right? So at the same time, what will happen? So if you have observed that whenever sometimes this kind of stuff happens, you will find a code in your browser. So this is my browser. So here, instead of your output, you will find some kind of codes if you have observed that, right? It may be HTML, it may be there some different kind of error message or whatever. So I don't want to display my logic, right? So here only error message will be there. Apart from that, I don't want to display any single line of my logic. So what you need to do, you need to write your logic in between these symbols. So what will happen? Whenever if there is an error or anyhow by some technical issue, your web page is not getting loaded. So at the same time, your logic is not going to be displayed in a web browser, right? That should not be there. So that kind of limitations also you can put here in a JavaScript. So these are the two ways, right? Normally we nowadays, as our web browsers are very modern and updated, so you don't need to worry about all this. So we are normally writing this kind of syntax that will be taken care of by the browsers, right? But in earlier days, this was the syntax, right? So that you have to keep in mind, that you have to remember. Okay, here is the structure of a JavaScript. So here you can see that in this particular structure, we have a HTML tag, we have a head tag, and in between head tag, we have a script tag, right? We have to write the type, that is text / JavaScript. And this is our logic, right? Document.write simple JavaScript. So what it will do, it will display one simple message in your web browser. So this simple JavaScript message will be displayed in your web browser. So this is the method, right? It's known as a DOM structure. We will discuss later on, right? So as we discuss in introduction section, it is an object based language, right? So here, this is the particular object. Document is the object. This is the object. and this is the function. This is the function. So we all know the object-oriented concept, so you can easily understand, right? And what is the job of this function, right? That will display the message. It is similarly like printf, println, right? So similarly, if you want to display any message in a web page, then you have to follow this structure. Document.write, into bracket, you have to provide the message. So this is a very simple structure, guys, and it is very easy to write a JavaScript code, right? You just need some basic fundamental knowledge. That's it. Okay. Okay. So as in CSS, there are three different ways to embed your script, embed your style in a HTML page. So similarly, in JavaScript also we have three different ways to embed your script in a in a HTML page. So the first way is internal script, right? So internal script are written like this. You have to use a script tag, and in a script tag you have to write the code. So similarly in style tag we are writing the code. So similarly here within a script tag you have to write the code. This particular script tag can be anywhere. It is in between the head section or it is in between the body section. Whereas in CSS, it will be available only in the head section. So this difference you have to remember, right? In a body section, you cannot write CSS, but in a JavaScript, you can write a JavaScript in a head section as well as you can write JavaScript in a body section. But it is the recommended way to go for the external JavaScript. So why we go for external JavaScript? So you have to create external JavaScript, right? You have to create a separate folder. Okay, that is the JavaScript folder, and you have to store all the files into that JavaScript folders. Okay, so that will be that way you can manage a large projects, right? So all the JavaScript code will be there in a JS folder, and you have to store this file within that particular JS folder. How you can embed that? So again, you have to write a script. This is in a head section. SRC, right? So source. So you have to provide a path over here, right? If it is in a current folder, then you can just directly write the custom.js. Or if it is somewhere in a folder and all that structure, so you have to provide a fully qualified path. And you have to close the script tag. That's it, guys. So this is an external JavaScript. So you have to write separate JavaScript file, and then you can embed that with the use of script tag, right? And a third one is inline JavaScript. So in an inline JavaScript, you have to use some inbuilt functions, right? So how you can provide that? So the first thing is, suppose this is my button. Whenever I click on a button, I want to display one alert box, right? And in that alert box, I want to display hello.js, right? But when this particular event is happening, whenever I click on this event, so on buttons, on click event, I need to call the function. So this function should be there. But here for the alert, we have a predefined inbuilt function. So you can just write alert into bracket. You can just provide the message, right? So whenever you click on this button, that alert box is going to be displayed. The second example, right? Suppose this is my hello JavaScript. Marquee text is there. Marquee text tag is like this particular hello JavaScript text is moving from particular direction. from here to here, from here to here, horizontal, vertical, in any direction you can continuously move your text, right? So what I want to do that with this. So whenever I mouse over, then stop. Whenever I mouse out, then start. So whenever you are using a marquee text, so this particular text is continuously moving, continuously moving. If I want to stop that, so I need to write a logic over here. So this is my function. This is my function. Stop is my function. Similarly, start is my function, right? Start is my function. So whenever this particular event is occurred, then these functions are going to be called, right? How to define a function, we will see. It is very easy, right? But just you have to understand how you can use the inline JavaScript. Okay, so here event-based things are there, and we need to write a functions for that, right? So these are the three ways of JavaScript to embed it in the HTML page. You can use in three different ways your JavaScript. I hope this is clear to everyone, right? It is very easy, guys. As we know that we have two types of scripts types, that is a client side and the server side. And we have already discussed the difference between this client side and server side scriptings, right? So the basic difference is that whenever you write the server side scripts, right, then your logics and all that will be executed at the server side, but at the client side, at a local machine, that is going to be executed, right? So we have already discussed the difference between all this, so we are not going to discuss right now. Okay. Methods of using JavaScript. Okay, so you can use in a inside head, you can use within a body, or you can just create the external file. So these are the three different places that you can use it, right? So this is one simple example I have put over here, right? So whenever you write a logic, then you can just follow this syntax always. So here we need to write a script tag, then which language, that is JavaScript language, which type, that is JavaScript / TypeScript. Here I have used begin hiding and end hiding scripts, right? So this logic is not going to be displayed if something is wrong. This is my script tag. In that, type is equals to text / JavaScript. And see, function, if you want to create any function, then you just need to use function keyword. We'll see in a detail, but right now you just remember, if you want to create any function, then you just need to write a function keyword and a function name, that is f is my function, right? And document.write welcome to JavaScript. If I want to call this function, then I can put this function in a buttons on click event. So whenever I click on that button, the message is going to be displayed. That's it, guys, right? So this is one simple program. This is one simple structure how you can write a JavaScript. Okay. So functions and all that we are going to touch everywhere. So this is a very simple syntax I have shown you. So you can write your own functions from the beginning itself, right? Okay. If you want to write that script in a body, so simple, you have to use script tag and you can write that thing, right? It is permittable. And external sheets you can write. You can have script tag. You can have src attributes. So you can see this is my folder. JS is my folder, and this is my file name. This is my file. External JS is my file, right? So this is my HTML document, okay? And this is my separate JS file. So in my JS file, only one line is there, okay? And here in HTML, my designing is there. So if I want to embed this JS file, then this is the way. By using a script tag, I can just write this, and you have to provide the JavaScript file name. Okay, right? So this is very simple example. I have already put in a particular, you can say PPT, so you can just refer it, right, later. So let's discuss the comments. So similarly, double slash and slash star slash, whatever comment we are using in a C, that is all permittable over here, right? So this is about the JavaScript, right? Let's discuss one example, whatever we have seen in this particular file, so you will get the idea. Okay, so this is the example for external JavaScript. So here you can see that this is my doc type HTML in a head, meta, title, whatever is there. Okay, this is our main intended line. That is script tag you have to write. Type is equals to text plus JavaScript. And here src js slash external js. So here I need to create this particular file in a separate way. So here in this, you can see okay. So here in a JS folder, you can observe that I have external JS file. So this is my external JS file. And in that file, I have only written one line, document.write. And I want to display this in a bold section, bold. I want to display this message in a bold. So here you can also use HTML tag inside that, right? So you can observe this thing over here. This is my JS file coding. This is my HTML file coding. So I have embedded that external JS into this. Now let's execute this code. So you can see that this is our message, right? This is executed by external JavaScript. So in a web page, I want to display this message. So it is like this, right? So here is the simple example of JavaScript. Okay, right? So likewise, you can do many stuffs.